Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by podcast host and real estate expert Pete Neubig. Pete is the CEO and co-founder of VPM Solutions, an online platform that connects the real estate industry with team members virtually. He has won awards and he has sold companies. He's very successful in what he does. So we're going to be talking to him and everything that he's up to. So Pete, thank you so much for joining me.
Curtis, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Why don't you start off by telling the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm originally from New York City, from the Bronx. I moved to Houston, Texas as a young adult. I am no longer a young adult, Curtis. Now I am an older adult. In my 50s. And I moved to Houston. I said I was going to live here for 1 year. And that was back in 1995, and I'm still here. So I like Texas. I like Houston. Took a job opportunity here. I didn't start my entrepreneurial journey until I was 41, where I started a property management company. I was in IT before that for like 25 years, and went into a completely different field in property management. And the reason I started my property management firm was because I was buying properties. I was an investor. And my partner, Steve Rosenberg, and I bought about 31 properties in about 18 months. I had all single family. I had also purchased in partnerships 3 apartment complexes. And so I had lots of property and did not know how to manage them. So I realized, oh man, I better start managing these properties correctly because I wasn't collecting rent. Maintenance was atrocious. All the challenges that happen when you don't manage properties. So we started a management company. The anticipation was that we would just have the management company for our properties. And somewhere along the way, we started doing what's called third-party managing or managing investment properties for other people. And that was actually profitable. So we ended up building that business. I quit my full-time job in December of 2012. And I started, at that point, a full-time Empire Industries property management. And we ran that property management firm until October 2019, so about 8 years. And we sold it. We were in 3 markets, Dallas, Houston, and Fort Worth. And we were at about 984 single family homes managing for over 600 investors. And we sold that business, took a job with Mind Management, who purchased us. And as I was working there, I started building what became VPM Solutions, and I have 3 partners in VPM Solutions. I'm the co-founder and CEO, and it's kind of like a full circle. I was in IT, went into a bunch of real estate, became a broker, a realtor, investor, property management, and now I'm back in IT, and I own a company that is a platform or a marketplace that connects property management and real estate companies with remote team members or virtual assistants in 150 plus countries. And that's about 30 years in about 6 minutes there, Curtis.
Yeah, you definitely have a impressive career. So kind of tell the listeners a little bit more about VPM. What does this company do?
Yeah, so in service-based companies like property management, or even like your, general contractor, or, anybody that's listening to this that may own a company that is dependent on people, right? People become your number one expense. And what happens is like the company doesn't really make a lot of profit margin. So the company has to keep growing to be able to afford to be able to get profit, right? And then what happens is your team gets stressed because you keep growing the company. And then you have to hire more people, and then you were profitable. When you're profitable, you're stressing your people out. And when you're When you hire people, you're not profitable. And it's this like seesaw that goes back and forth. And so back in about 2016, I realized that there are jobs out there that just do not require a lot of experience and a lot of unique skill sets. You know, these are like kind of like your startup jobs. But I couldn't afford hiring people in the US, especially with employer taxes and and the salary that people required. And the people that would take the position, I found like even though like I found I was paying, you know, a higher rate than I really than what the job role could afford. Um, and I was also getting kind of people who just saw the job as a job, not as a career. People who had challenges outside the company and would bring it into the company. Maybe their car would break down, or they had some challenges, family issues that they were bringing to the business. And what we've found is if we can hire people for a fraction of the cost, but still have you know, they're bilingual, they're highly educated, they are getting, even though they're getting less money here that we're paying, they're making more money than they ever made in their life, or they're making really good money compared to where they live in. You get people that have a different mindset. They don't see it as a job, they see it as a career. And so you get highly competent people for these kind of lower skill jobs, and then you can hire more of them. So anytime you have a company that requires, you know, lots of people because there's lots of tasks, obviously the more people you can hire, the more tasks can get done. And that was the concept that I had when I said, let me create when I hired the remote team members, my company went from over 56% of our revenue was allocated towards salaries. After I hired the remote team members, more people and my salary went down from 56% of revenue to 34%. So a huge change, which allowed the company to run profitably, allowed me to pay my people in the US more, and allowed me to give bonuses, healthcare, you know, lots of other perks. And so when I was thinking about building VPM, I was thinking, how can I help other service-based companies, especially, you know, the property management industry? And so that's where the marketplace was born. And with VPM, we have about 40,000 candidates, or you know, people looking for work. And if you're a company in the US, you can create a free profile. You can search all those candidates. You can then invite them to a job. You can post a job. We have an algorithm that will match people on the platform to your job. You can then interview them and then hire them through our platform, all for free. We the way we make money is once you hire them, they enter time on the platform and you pay them through our platform. So we have time cards and we have reporting, we have training, and of course we have, you know, the database of candidates. So we feel like we're kind of all in one. You can source, train, onboard, manage, and pay all in one spot. And the way we make money is we charge the candidate, or in this case, the virtual assistant, a percentage. It's called a platform fee. We charge 10%. So if you hire somebody at $10 an hour, they're going to bring home nine, and VPM will take in $1. And we're seeing huge success with that. People are reducing their payroll costs. They're able to hire multiple people. We're seeing people get out of poverty in these second and third world countries, and we're seeing companies have a much higher profit margin. So pretty exciting stuff.
Absolutely. And what I was going to ask, what are some best practice tips for somebody who's in your industry, you know, service based, wanting to source, train, and onboard, you know, remote people?
Let's take a quick break. Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Yeah, so there's a lot. That's a great question. There's so much in that one simple question, right? Like, so the first thing really is, are you ready for a remote team member? Like, you need to know what that job role is, because the biggest fear that people have with hiring remote is, I'm not sure what they can do, and how do I know they're working? Those are kind of the two big ones. So the first thing is, how do you know what they can do? Well, just do a time study. And if you have a bunch of items that you're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that you don't like to do, you literally can just create a job description from those objects. The other thing you can do is, if you're a bigger company and you have different processes, you can say, you know what, I want to hire somebody to handle this process. So for example, in property management, we have like a lease renewal process. So I hired somebody to handle just the lease renewals with the annual inspections, and they can own that process. Once you have a really good understanding of what you want that job role to be, now you know exactly, okay, that's kind of like the rules of the game, right? Those are the instructions to the seat. Next thing is, okay, I want to make sure I hire the right person in my organization. So what are your core values? If you do not have core values, your company does have them. They're just maybe not the ones that you want, right? So core values have to start at the top and get pushed down. So you can't allow your team to create your core values. For example, if you have a company and everybody comes in late, well, your core value is that you could come in late. That's just like, that ends up becoming a value, right? And a lot of people, they'll create core values and they'll put them on a nice little poster board and put it on the wall. They'll talk about it one time, never to be heard from again. You have to live those core values. If you are creating core values and you don't really resonate with those values, and you're the owner of the company, or you're a top, a C-suiter in the company, they're never going to get pushed down. You have to live those core values. They have to be you. So once you know your core values, now you know the type of person that you're looking for your organization. This is whether they are going to be in an office next to you, or they're going to be in a state, one state, two states over, or if they're going to be, 12,000 miles away in the Philippines. You need to know the type of person you're looking for. Then with the job description, you need to know what they're supposed to do, but more importantly, they need to know what they're supposed to do. That's why the job description is so important. Then every job description in your organization should have a personality profile attached to it. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of personality assessment programs out there. Predictive Index is probably the most famous one. I'm a big fan of DISC, DISC. And personality profile tells me this is the type of person that will be the best fit for this role. So think of like the person, like the core values is a ticket to get on the boat, right? To get on this boat, you need to have these core values. You need to be this type of person. This is the person I want to be in the foxhole with. This is the person that we're going to go to war with, okay? Then I need to put the right person in the right seat. Well, how do I know what's the right seat? I need instructions for the seat. That's your job description. Now I know, okay, now in this seat, I need, let's say I need the real skinny guy in the front yelling row, row, row. Well, that's going to be a different guy than in the back, the big guy that's going to be the anchor to the rowing of the boat. So who's the right person? Well, that's the personality profile comes in. So Now I have the instructions to the seat, the job description. I have the personality profile, which is going to be your DISC assessment. So now I know the type of person, the personality profile, and the job description. The last thing I need to know is how they're going to row. And those are key performance indicators. So every job role in your organization should have key performance indicators. And if you have like 14, that's too many. The less is more approach. You should have 1 to 3 KPIs. More than three, then most likely you need to split that job role. In my organization today, at VPM, no one has more than 3 KPIs. If we can get it down to one, it's 1 KPI. And the KPI is like your scorecard, right? So like we all went to school. My sister loved getting her scorecard or her report card because it was good. I didn't like getting mine that often, but I knew where I stood. People like to have an idea where they stand, and the key performance indicator allows them to, to try to achieve those goals. And then there's a bunch of rules on how to, how to set up the KPI, how often to look at it, and all that good stuff. But once I have that, now I have a very good understanding of what I'm looking for in a person. Now, the only difference between hiring local and hiring remote is when you hire remote, you have to look at their computer, their internet speed, and their workspace. And so those are only three different things. So when we hire remote, we actually have a scorecard. We have a 10-point scorecard, and we score things like responsiveness, computer and internet speed, and appearance and office. Right, those are a few things that we look at. We also look at skill, education, English proficiency. That's the other one you have to look at is English proficiency, because you are hiring people where English is their second language in most cases. And so, but other than that, everything else is very similar, right? And then the next question is, okay, so now, Pete, I hire this person. Well, how do I train them? Right? So they have the job description, and how do I train them? And we find it actually easier to train through Zoom and then record the training. And so what we do is, and I'm not saying this is the best way, Curtis. This is a way, and it's worked for us for quite a while. But what we do is, anytime you hire somebody new, we spend a lot of time with them up front, every day, hour at least minimum, if not more. We train them through Zoom, and we record it. And then they have to watch the Zoom and build their own uh, user manual. And the way we do, even if we have a user manual or process manual, we want them to build their own, because I made a mistake early on where I built like a 110-page maintenance manual. And not only did anybody not read it, but they didn't even know how to search through it when questions came up. So with these videos, we train them. You learn by listening, watching, writing down, and then kind of training, regurgitating, right, and letting us know. So what we do is we do have the video. They watch, then they listen, then they have to watch the video, then they have to write it down in a process manual, and then they have to basically teach you the next day. So when you have to teach, right, what they say, the best way to learn something is actually teach it. And so we do that. Most job roles take between 2 to 4 weeks to train. Some of them take a little bit longer, but usually within 4 weeks, usually you can let them move on to the next level. And we always say the first 60 days, everything gets escalated. You kind of work in conjunction with you, and then over time, less and less get escalated to the point where it's only like 10% get escalated. And so you redirect them when they ask a question like, hey, how do I do this? Well, how would you do this? What do you think the answer is? So instead of answering instead of becoming a superhero, getting a case of superhero-itis and answering every question, you redirect and ask them, well, what do you think? How would you do this? And so that's your training piece. And I know that's not easy. I get that. But once you do this the first time, then you have your training database. Then you have somebody else that can actually train. So when you have to hire the next person, the person you trained can train them, and or they can go to those videos. And if you do the videos and you put them on YouTube and you make them private versus public and tag them right, they can use that. And so that's how you train. And then the next piece is how do you manage them, right? And people are worried. They'll say, um, Pete, I'm worried that, this $6 an hour guy that I hired is going to steal time and he's going to go to the bathroom for 2 hours and he's going to leave early or whatever it is. Meanwhile, they got a guy in their office next to him, makes $100,000 a year, comes in late, takes 2 smoke breaks, takes a long lunch, leaves early. And they don't care about that. That guy's stealing so much time, but you don't care about that. But you care about the $6 an hour guy that's taking that's going to the restroom for an hour. So there's 3 ways to manage people when remote. You can manage them through micromanagement, you can manage them through abdication, or you can manage them through delegation. And so the way the first way, the micromanagement is basically write everything down that you do. I'm going to use a software to screen capture you. I want you on video all day. Like no one wants to be micromanaged, and it's a great way to burn somebody out really quick. Plus, do you actually have all that time to micromanage somebody? Like you hire them to do the work, let them do the work. The opposite side of that spectrum is you have somebody that abdicates. And what I mean by that is they hire somebody and they say, "Oh man, I've been so busy. Here's all the stuff that I do that you need to do now." And then they don't give them any direction. They don't train them. They don't checking in, and they pat themselves on the back saying, "Man, I'm not a micromanager." Yeah, but you're not a manager at all. You're not managing them. And what happens there is you don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They've never been trained. They get frustrated. You get frustrated, and then you say, "This doesn't work." Or worse, they leave and say, that guy's crazy. That doesn't work. And they go find another job. And then the one in the middle is the delegation or the management. The way I manage is the first thing I'd look for is availability. So we create policy in our organization to make sure that we create a policy like if I Slack you or text you, you have 20 minutes to Slack me back, or 30 minutes, I think it is. If I email you, you email back in 2 hours. If I call you, to call backs in 30 minutes. So we create policy because the first line of defense when somebody is remote is availability. Are they available? If they're not answering emails, phone calls, text messages, then most likely they're not working. That's just kind of common sense. The second way we look at this and we manage is when you have a meeting, you're on camera and you are in your home office. We're not taking meetings from the beach or from Starbucks. You're in your home office and you're on camera and you're dressed appropriately. So that's the next thing. The next thing is I look at escalations, internal and external. Am I getting escalations from clients stating that you're not available, right? Different availability, internal versus external. Or am I getting escalations from people internally saying, "Man, every time I ask, so and so to do work, they don't do the work," right? So I'm looking at availability and I'm looking at escalations. And then the last piece is KPIs. If somebody is hitting their KPIs and they're available and I'm not getting escalations, my opinion is I don't care if they're working 40 hours, 60 hours, or 20 hours. I pay straight 40 in most cases. And if you can do your job in 30 hours, I'll pay you for 40, especially if you're hitting your KPIs and you're available and there's no escalations and the work's getting done. Doesn't matter to me. But that's the way we do it. And the way we manage it is we have a weekly meeting. Now, on a smaller team, you might meet if you have an executive assistant, for example, and you hire somebody in like Costa Rica, you're probably going to meet with them every day, maybe multiple times a day. And that's great. But you should have one day a week, a specific hour at that time where it is a specific agenda. Because when you talk to somebody every day, it's just kind of like, task-based, or I need this question answered, or I need this thing done. What we do is we have an agenda. We meet the same time each week. So the same day, the same time each week. And we go through We start off with a feel good. So tell me something good about your personal or business. Then we go through a KPI review. Are we hitting our numbers? If not, does it need to go on a challenge list? Or is it, like I was out last week, so of course we didn't hit our KPI. That makes sense. So if there's a reason and it's not a challenge, then we just move forward. Then we look at tasks from the last week. Did you do the tasks that were done? If not, do they have to go on a challenge list? And then we get to the challenge list. And those first things are just 5 minutes each. In a challenge list, as the business owner and manager, you're asking the question, what can I do to make your life easier? Right? So our jobs as business owners and managers are just really to get the tools and the training to our team and then get out of the way. So what can I do to make your life easier? What can I do so that you hit your KPIs? What can I do? Right? And then the biggest thing is I don't like people every day slacking me. Like if they have an escalation or a challenge, emailing me or slacking me or calling me every day. What I do is tell them put on a challenges list and then we'll go over it next week. Unless it's like DEFCON 5, right? Then we'll talk about it. But what happens is 80% of those challenges that they put on during the week, they've figured out a solution, which means that okay, so now they're figuring out the solution. So you don't have, it's like you're not the bottleneck. They figured it out. And the 20%, now that's a training opportunity, or it's something that you need to do. Like maybe they don't have rights to get access to something. You have to give them rights to give them access. And they just couldn't do that until they got with you. But it also might just be like they need an answer on a question. And you could turn around and say, well, if I got hit by a bus, or if I won the lotto, I like that one better. But if I won the lotto, what would you do if I wasn't around? And a lot of times, it might not be the right thing, but you get them thinking, and then you can kind of, you know, lead them to a certain answer. So by having these weekly structured meetings allows you to keep that management, right? You're looking at the KPI, you're solving any challenges. Imagine if you could solve one challenge a week. That's 52 challenges a year. That's a pretty good year. The last thing we do is we ask, what is your stress level on a scale of 1 to 10? If the stress level is a 10 plus, 10 plus, 10 plus, then that's a red flag because it could be either A, you have the wrong person in the organization. It could be B, you have the right person in the organization, but they're in the wrong seat. It could be C, they're the wrong person and they're the wrong person in the organization and they're not in the right seat. They're all right. Or it could be like it's seasonal, like in property management in the summer, leasing is really, really chaotic. And it's, you don't really hit your KPIs, right? And so it just could be seasonal. It's just a stressful time. Or it just could be you just not the right person. Or it could be like you don't have the right KPIs and they're stressed out because they're not in the KPIs. But I promise you, if somebody's a 10 plus multiple weeks in a row, that is a good indicator that either A, they're not a good fit, or B, they're looking to leave because what you're asking them to do doesn't align with their personality and they get stressed out pretty easily. So those are kind of the things that people ask a lot about. Like, how do I find them? You can find them on VPM. How do I pay them? You can pay them through VPM. How do I hire them? We went through that. How do I manage? How do I train them? I went through that. How do I manage them? And I went through that. So that was a long-winded answer to your original question, but your question could have been answered in so many different ways.
Yeah, I completely understand. So real quick, give people who are looking to sell a business the best practice tips on, preparing before and after the sale.
Okay, that's a great question. So when you're looking to sell your business, one of the things that I wish I would have done, because we sold it pretty quick, but one of the things that you really want to do is you want to get your financials clean. You need clean financials. If your balance sheet is messed up or your P&L doesn't look right, that's going to hurt. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to know how your business gets sold? Is it sold on EBITDA? Is it sold on times revenue? What are the ways that people are going to look at your business? And then you want to try to solve any challenges. It's like selling an old house, right? If you have a house and you know that the foundation is messed up, you know people are going to ask for a discount because the foundation is messed up. So you fix the foundation so you can get top dollar. What are the holes or what's broken in your organization that you can solve? And a lot of times, if your business is dependent on you, then a lot of times that's not a sellable business. So one of the reasons why we were able to sell at a higher valuation is that we had processes and people in place, and the business wasn't contingent on me or my business partner. The other thing that we did is we did not take a lot of money out of the business. We invested a lot of money back in for growth. So we did not. What's the right way to say this? I didn't kill the golden goose, I guess. I just kept investing more money. And when you grow, a lot of times growth takes investment, and which means that you have to delay gratification in the form of getting paid. So I didn't pay myself very much money for all those years because we kept building the business, building the business, building the business, and then we were able to sell. Now, the bigger question you asked is, how do you prepare yourself after the sale? And this is really interesting because there's like economics to it, right? So you have to prepare yourself. Like when you sell, what are you going to do to mitigate taxes? And there's a bunch of stuff there, and I'm sure you can get some CPAs on and talk about that. But what was really more meaningful to me is the mindset. Curtis, when I sold my business, I had over $1 million in my bank account for the first time ever. I was getting paid more money than I ever got paid because I stayed on with the company and I took a job with them. And I was the unhappiest I've ever been in my life. So I want you to think about that. I had more money than I ever had, making more money than I ever had, and I was the unhappiest I ever was. And it is true, like money doesn't buy you happiness. It helps, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't buy you happiness. And what happened was when we sold, I did not know what my next move was. My business partner, he knew what his next move was. And we sold, he started a business coaching program and he was happy as all get up. Because I didn't know what I was going to do, and because we sold at what we sold at, I didn't have enough money to retire. I could have retired for a year, but then I would have had to start doing something else and maybe even like finding a job. And so I ended up just taking the path of least resistance, and I took the job for the company that bought us. And because I didn't know what I was going to do, so if you're looking at maybe selling your business, understand and know what is the next thing you're going to do. Because I didn't know, I took the job, and I was depressed for about a year and a half. And it's so funny that I became undepressed, if you will, Curtis, when I realized I'm going to start building VPM. And I started building VPM in 2020, but I didn't get out. It didn't come out until 2021 of June, which is when I left the company that purchased me. And I realized pretty early on that I was unemployable. I'm not a good employee anymore. I'm a better business owner than I'm an employee now. And so yeah, so knowing what you're going to do next and having a plan, and all. So if I could do it all over again, I'll kind of give you a peek behind the curtain. If I could do it all over again, number one is financially, as far as the sales price, I got a very fair deal when I sold my company. So there was no negotiation to be had, and it was a pretty good deal. The second thing I would have done though is we took the money out over 3 years. So we got 60% the day we sold, and then we got what is it, 20% year two, 20% year three. And year two was a clawback year, and then year three was not. Meaning, like if they lost clients while we were operating the first year, they would take money back from the 20% that they owed us, and then the last year was nothing, no clawback. And then I took 20% of the sale in stock. Well, if I could do it all over again, I would take all cash up front no stock, and I would take less money to get my money from on day one. So let's say they wanted to pay you $1 million, but if you want all your money on day one, they're going to pay you 950,000. I'll take the 950 all day long and move on. And I would not have taken a job with them. I would have had an idea what I was going to do next. I would have got the funds, and I would have started investing in that next venture, time and money. So hopefully that answered your question.
Oh, yeah, that absolutely answered my question. And we got about 10 or so minutes left. So tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of focus. So I talk to lots of business owners. Matter of fact, I talked to I own a small percentage of a maintenance company, and I was talking to the CEO there yesterday, and all of a sudden he's talking about building like a whole property management software. And so I had to talk to him about focus. And so I'm a big fan of focus, meaning like I only do one thing at a time. And I know that makes me pretty boring, but I want to be I want to be the best at one thing versus average at many things. So when you say what's the next thing I'm working on, it's just VPM. I'm like literally I eat, breathe, and think and dream of VPM. And we're coming out with a couple of cool things inside of VPM. But I've had numerous people come to me, and look, Curtis, you know this, like as a successful podcaster like yourself, as you get more successful in life, you have more opportunities, and those opportunities can really pull you away from what your core is, right? What you're supposed to be doing in life. I'm supposed to be building VPM. That's what I'm supposed to be doing now. This is the season that I'm in. But I have opportunities all the time, and they ask me like, "Oh, we can do this and we can do that, and we could whatever it is." And I've been offered CEO of, excuse me, of property management firms. I've been offered to, people want to pay me for coaching, consulting. People want to, start another business with me, and all of that's like, nope. I just want to. I have a vision of what I believe VPM looks like. I also have the vision of, so I have a vision of what that looks like on the software side. I have a vision of what that looks like as far as an organizational structure side, and I have a vision of what that looks like as far as annual recurring revenue, valuation, and what the exit looks like. And I have a kind of a year plan there. And if you don't have a vision, it's hard to like if you don't have a vision of where you're going, it's hard to get there. It's hard to get the steps to get there. So to answer your question, VPM is building a couple of cool things right now. We're building it where we charge a platform fee to the contractor, and we're building a piece where the company can take on a percentage of that fee if they like. So I'm really excited about that. We're adding to our LMS training, our learning management system training. I actually got 2 or 3 courses that I'm reviewing. Just got off the phone with a few other people that they want to add courses. And then we just kicked off a recruiting. So the VPM platform is built as a do-it-yourself. We then created a white glove service where it's a do it with you, and we don't charge for that. And we just kicked off a do it for you service called our Gold Glove. And with the Gold Glove, there's a fee for that. It's $1,500, but we do all the work. And what we're realizing is, man, there's a lot of inefficiencies throughout that process. And so we're starting to build efficiencies in our Gold Glove process that will then, once we get it tested and true, tested and proven, we'll then move that over to our do it for you and our do it yourself service. So like we're gonna have like a self interview for everybody. We're gonna have better searching. We're gonna have templates built in where you can message a bunch of candidates all at one time. You can build your own templates. So that's all the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. So we're pretty excited because we do believe that we have one of the better recruiting systems out there, platforms, and we just keep adding to it and just going deeper. And that's what happens when you stay focused. You can go much deeper in your craft.
Well, throw out your contact info so people can keep up with everything that you're up to.
Yeah, so the best way to get me, believe it, I'm on all the socials, but I don't really run my socials. So the best way to reach out to me is old school email. I told you, Curtis, when we first started, I'm in my 50s now. I'm a big email guy still. So it's Pete at vpmsolutions.com, or you can just go to vpmsolutions.com and check out our site, and you can create a profile for free and browse around.
Okay, well, close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if that was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Man, Curtis, you had me. I talked about a lot of stuff, man. I did the vision thing, which I don't normally talk about. So I would just say this, okay? If you are a business owner, um, and you are looking to reduce, costs, and there are jobs out there that do not need to be, local, think about using a remote team. It will anytime I've told anybody about the remote team and they've done it, they come back and say, "Man, I should have done that sooner." So that would be the parting shot, since I do own a marketplace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, VPMsolutions.com. Please be sure to check out everything that Pete's up to. Follow, share this episode to as many business owners that can benefit from his services as possible. Jump on your favorite podcast app, check out the show, leave us a review, share it around. For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. Pete, thank you for all that you and your company are doing, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Curtis.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.